This is the Christmas edition of Orbital Edge News. I'm your host, Chad, and we're going to be doing the top 5 disappointments in space of 2024. Let's get right into it, and starting in at number 5 is the pair of SpaceX groundings that occurred. So a little bit about these groundings. The first one occurred on August 28th, and this was grounded after a failed landing attempt during a routine Starlink mission. This grounding costed the space program about a 1 month of a dry spell of no launches. Then on September 30th, the Falcon 9 Crew 9 mission had an issue with the second stage deorbit burn. And this caused a 2-week delay in launches. And we've talked about on the show episodes back on why this is a bad thing for the space program, because we don't have any alternative launchers to take care of these dry spells, which cost people who are trying to put up payloads a lot of money. So we're going to actually, I'm pointing up here a link to that video that does talk about that. So with that off to the side, we're going to move on to number 4 here, and that is the issue that happened with the ISS. The smells that happened after the Soyuz docked, and droplets of fluid was seen after the hatch opening of the Progress 90 mission. And this happened in the Poisk area of the International Space Station. If you don't know what the Poisk is, it is a module on the International Space Station where the spacecraft docks and also has an EVA hatch as well. So it's a multi-use module. It has an airlock. It does have all the electrical harnesses that will connect power from the Soyuz spacecraft and into the International Space Station, as well as the plumbing to do any fuel transfers and transferring any data that needs to be sent into the flight computers. Now, for number 3 of our disappointments in space in 2024 is the Delta IV Heavy final launch. Now, hear me out. The reason why this made this list was there was some mishandling in the launch scheduling. There was a lot of community disappointments on the launch date, which occurred during the rare solar eclipse. And we've talked about this on the show. Another episode for you guys to watch about our impressions of the solar eclipse, which also talked about the Delta IV Heavy launch and why that was actually a bad deal. But let me know what you think in the comments they're going to do with Launch Pad 37, which the Delta IV Heavy did lift off from. There are rumors of either Blue Origin or SpaceX maybe posting a bid on purchasing that pad. SpaceX, as they don't want to lease the pad, they actually want to buy it outright. However, not much is known about Blue Origin. That's normal for them to not let the public know a lot about what they're doing in space, but we love you anyways, Blue Origin. So, now that that number 3 spot is out of the way, we're going to move on to another hot take and controversial pick here, and this one's going to go to the Europa Clipper. Now, don't get mad, okay? I legitimately have the reason why this made number 2. Okay, now the Europa Clipper launched on October 14th. Here's the issue with it. It was supposed to go on an SLS, the Space Launch System. The issue with that, it starts off with, it was a congressional mandated mission where the Europa Clipper was supposed to launch on the Space Launch System. That in itself can be a problem. For one, you can't foresee a lot of problems during, the building the spacecraft and, of course, the construction of the rocket. So a mission like this would definitely take a long time. This is one of the outer planets, so going to Mars takes about up to 2 years, but going to planets like Jupiter and Saturn can take anywhere between 6 and 10 years. However, a direct ascent mission could take as little as 2 years, and the Space Launch System was supposed to promise that, and it would have, except the spacecraft wasn't built to handle the solid rocket boosters that the Space Launch System would be having in its new 5-segment SRBs. Vibration issues, of course, are one of the worst things you can have for delicate instruments on a spacecraft. So they decided to move this mission onto a Falcon Heavy, which is a problem. Why is it a problem? You just take a 2-year mission and you bump it up to a 6-year mission. The spacecraft was not designed for a 6-year mission, but it would have been more feasible to just solve the vibration problems on the Space Launch System, integrate that spacecraft, and send its way to Europa to arrive at about the year 2026. But here we are. It's already launched on the Falcon Heavy, so it's gonna arrive at the year around 2030. It's gonna be doing 49 flybys, and also this thing is gonna get as low as 16 miles. I'm not done with the problems of launching this on a Falcon Heavy. Because of that, this thing's not gonna be able to land now. So you can pretty much understand the concerns that we do have about the mission. And we still wish this mission awesome success, because I've been always excited about the Europa Clipper. It's definitely one of the most interesting moons that are out there. We think we might find life, under one of the frozen oceans in there, and that was, one of the main goals of the mission was to actually land on the surface, do awesome science, and hopefully find those, beginning signs of life. However, that's not going to happen, and time is money. That's why it was very important to get the mission time down to 2 years instead of 6. So, I know, cost, that's not really an excuse here, because, like I just said, time is money. You want a mission completed before, whoever's working on it is still, working for those contractors that have spent the time on the mission. So you don't want this thing to time out. The components on the Europa Clipper, as mentioned before, are not rated for 6 years, so I'm a bit concerned about when that spacecraft does arrive to Europa that it might arrive with some issues. So before we move on to the number 1 here, my final thoughts on this is the decision making was absolutely horrible on this. They could have made this work on the Space Launch System. All it would have needed to take was a little bit of love and care into that payload bay, and yes, there's a little bit more cost to that, but with the Space Launch System, there's already a sunk cost. So time is money, and we got to make it worth it. That's our thoughts on the Europa Clipper, and we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, the number 1 thing that was a disappointment in space. Stay tuned, don't go away. Welcome back. We're in Max Q of the program, and before we get into the top 1, we're gonna go over an honorable mention I think that should make the cut here in one form or another, and that's gonna go to the Orion heat shield. That thing came back super roasted, and it caused a delay in Artemis 2 and 3. So congratulations on Artemis for having a crusty heat shield to give us confidence of re-entry from the moon. So now for the number 1 disappointment of spaceflight in 2024 goes to the Boeing Starliner. I mean the Boeing Shameliner. I mean, oh gosh, the Boeing Starliner and that crew flight that went to the International Space Station that stuck Butch and Sunita Williams up on that space station, and they're still up there. This mission flew on June 5th, so they've been up there for half a year, and I can only imagine what their Christmas is like right now. However, astronauts are trained, you know, from a psychological standpoint to really endure those long durations in space. So, I mean, they're not going crazy, but there has been a report out on the condition of Sunita Williams. The pictures are circulating that she's not looking too well. I'm not sure if that's directly related to the amount of time she spent up there, because she wasn't prepared for that length of time. So that does weigh in a little bit on that. If you are prepared for that long of a stay, you do go up knowing that, for example, Mike and Scott Kelly, that whole experiment there where his twin brother stayed down on Earth, and then they compared the two, where the astronaut Kelly stayed up there for a year, and he knew what he was going to do. So yeah, but that doesn't mean, you know, something physical can happen to your body by staying up that long. However, this is not what the show's about right now. We need to talk about the number one spot here, the Boeing Starliner, the most disappointment in space for the year. This flight should not have gone up until it was fully ready. Yeah. By the way, this table, I've hit it a couple times, and it surprised me. It's made of this hollow metal. It's an affordable desk, so it sounds just as how much it cost. Now, what a wonderful segue that is to talk about cost here, because that mission has accumulated billions and billions of dollars despite launching it with broken thrusters. Oh gosh. So yeah. It wasn't most of the thrusters that were not working when they launched this. They launched with slightly malfunctioned thrusters. We did a space pod on this mission. If you want to learn more details about that, I do explain that in detail. I might be getting this wrong on the amount of thrusters and things like that. The mission was a while ago. So go see the space pod, get that information there. Other than that, that's going to wrap up the year for 2024. I don't want to go just yet. This is the last show that we are doing for the year, so I do wish everybody a Merry Christmas and, of course, a happy, good and New Year. With all the weird stuff that's been happening. The drones. There hasn't been any drones at the Cape here yet. I can tell you, though, we had this weird thing where 3 military helicopters flew by my work in a line. And I've never seen that happen here, because usually it's just one helicopter. So if anybody watching this, do let me know in the comments why that might be. I don't know a whole lot about military operations around here, despite me living around Patrick Air Force Base. So, yeah. But yep, in 2025, I'm going to kick off season 2 with the top. Well, it's not a top list. It's just going to be, an overview of what to expect in 2025 and Orbital Edge News wish list of what we want to see happen in space in 2025. So without much left to talk about, we're gonna cut it right here. There's going to be no After Dark. Like I said, that's an experimental series. I'm going to do it sometimes. When I start a Patreon, I might make it for Patreons. I don't know exactly what I want to do yet. It could be merch instead. So whether you agree with our list or not, let us know in the comments down below. And also reach out to us on social media and let us know, what do you like to see on this top 5 list. I'm your host, Chad, and I will see you next year.